So, um, so for everybody that's here now, I know some of y'all might be new, some of y'all might have been here previously. Essentially, where we have been doing is we've been looking at N8N, we've been also looking at APIs and things like that, and looking at how they all work together in order to create powerful automations and AI agents that we want to create use for our business or our personal lives, etc. So, really quickly, the pieces of N8N, what N8N is supposed to do is N8N is supposed to be like your own personal kind of, how can I say, your own little uh, assistant or worker that works for you and does things on your behalf. So it's open source. You can pretty much it being open source means you can look at the code at any time that you want. If you wanted to get that much into it, it means that you can deploy it locally on your computer and not have to pay for it if you know how to use it. It also means there's a community of people that keep it up to date. It's not just one person or one company. It means that there's any developer that sees a problem, sees something that they want to add, they're all are allowed to add additional pieces to it, which makes it safer because everybody can see how it's supposed to work and make sure it's what it's supposed to do, and also makes it more robust. That's how a lot of these big softwares that are used like worldwide are able to get as big and as powerful as they are, because instead of keeping it closed inside of a box where only a few people can see the code and know how to use it, open source pretty much assimilates the power of the entire developer community and allows it to be able to get that right. But you don't need to know how to code in order to use the tool. It's made by people that know how to code so that you don't have to. And it lets you work with a visual editor that we're going to look at more today, that we've already seen in some of the previous lessons. And essentially, we're going to see how we leverage that to build something. If you don't recall, the thing that we are about to start working on is a faceless page generator tool. And essentially, what it's there for is to create the content that you want for your faceless page. And the great thing about N8N is we get to make these tools custom. So we're actually building one that's going to work specifically for the movie niche, but you could always change it to be for television shows, or AI, hair, makeup, whatever the heck you want it to be. And essentially what we're doing with this tool is we're going to use the tool to go and find content ideas and then magically generate content for us and save it so that we can post that content ourselves. Or post it automatically with a tool that we're going to use called Metrical. That's going to allow us to automatically generate content on a specific timetable. So if we want our content to, let's say, for example, come out once a week or come out twice a week, 3 times a week, we can schedule that in Metrical to come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Come out every Monday at 5, Tuesday at 6, and Wednesday at 7, or whatever the case may be. So we can do whatever we want there. So the key to remember is the thing that we're doing is that we're going to use this N8N tool, right, to automatically generate for us content for our faceless Instagram page or faceless Facebook, faceless TikTok, whatever you might be creating. So we're going to use a bunch of tools to come together and be able to do that. And N8N is going to allow us to bring these tools together and just set it and forget it and have it just automatically create content. And there's other tools that do stuff like this. But I'm not going to say the problem, but the thing about these other tools that create these content for faceless channels is you normally have to pay something crazy like $100 a month or $60 a month or $70 a month, $100 a month, or whatever, in order to generate that. And if you run this, once you know how to do it, once you learn how to run it locally, you could just run it on your computer connected to the internet, and you don't have to pay anything because you know how to put it together yourself. You don't have to pay to use somebody else's tool. And also, if somebody else wanted a similar tool, remember the whole goal of this course is that you can know how to monetize the stuff yourself, that you're actually be able to get those, get people that want to use the tool themselves, and they can pay you to use the tool, which is where we're going with these lessons over the next 4 or 5 months. Building. So with this, like I said, N8N, the way it works is N8N, like I said, is the tool that we've been using in order to create these automations. And everything in N8N starts with a trigger, which basically just means something that makes the automation start. That could be getting a message on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. It could be just clicking a button to turn it on. It could be filling out a form. It could be you doing anything like that. But there needs to be something that tells the tool to start working, to start doing the thing that you asked them to do. Let's say, for example, you might have seen people post something for social media, and then underneath it, inside the caption, it says, if you want to get this free ebook, comment AI underneath this post. And if you comment AI, it'll automatically send you a DM, and the DM will contain the ebook. So trigger was somebody commenting on the post. And when that person commented on the post, then the automation started to run. And the automation said, if somebody comments on this post, send them this ebook. And so then it automatically sends them the ebook. Okay, I said it says, let's see. It says hard to listen to. Oh, is the audio messed up? No, that's because I have wind blowing in my face because it's freaking 100 degrees in Atlanta. See, why y'all wait so long to tell me that? Let me just move the fan over here. So I got the AC. I got can you hear? You should be able to hear it better now. Can y'all can hear me now? Cool. Yeah, because I moved it over a little bit. It was probably blowing directly into the microphone. Y'all can't be sitting here letting me talk for 10, 15 minutes. Could y'all hear me though? I've been talking a while. I said a lot. Did you? Somebody said it? I didn't see it. All right. Well, as long as y'all can hear me now, because if it happens again, if I move in that direction or something like that, it happens again, let me know. Good. It's still good now, right? I moved it a little bit. Cool. All right. Perfect. So now what we're gonna do really quick, now that we kind of reviewed. Oh wait, I don't think I finished. So we talked about what a trigger is. Trigger starts the automation. An action node is one of the things that actually does an action, right? So it does something like perform a task, like send an email, add something to a database. It does a thing, right? A transform node, right, is going to allow you to be able to actually change data from one format to another, right? That you might have got data in one format and you need to change it. That's going to make sense when we look at it, because we're going to have to keep passing data around. If you remember the first lesson that we did, we talked about APIs, and we talked about JSON data and whatever. And that's the way that these programs are going to consume the data. They need to be able to see the data in the right format for it to be able to read it correctly. So sometimes we're going to have to we're going to have to take data from YouTube, and YouTube might put the data one way, but we need to send it to Twitter. We need to send it to Twitter instead, or we need to send it to Instagram. And we need to change the data from the way YouTube likes it to the way that Instagram likes it in the middle. So we're going to have to do steps to say, hey, change that YouTube data to Instagram data, and then send it to Instagram, right? So we're going to have to do things like that in between. And then also, when it comes to applying logic, that's when we're going to do things like say, like, if this, do this. Like, for example, we could say, if we were talking about automation with a customer, we could say something like, if a customer, a lot of you probably have used Digital Boss Academy, right? And there's like some automation that says, if the person upgrades and pays an additional $222, give them access to volume 3, right? And we need the automation to do something like that to give them access to something else. Or it could say that the person subscribed to the newsletter, so send them the newsletter now. So whatever those things might be, we could have logic nodes that take care of saying, if they paid, do this. If they didn't pay, do that. Or if they subscribe, do this. If they didn't subscribe, do that. Or if they spent more than $300, send them this. If they spend less than $300, send them something else, or do another set of steps. Whatever that logic might be, there's really no limit to what you can do, as long as the computer can read the data and then make a decision about whether something is bigger, smaller, red or blue, yellow or green, even or odd, whatever you might be checking. So those are the pieces. So without further ado, let's jump in here. Oh wait, where did that go? There we go. Let's look at this workflow. Okay, now you're not going to have this workflow on your screen. Today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to walk you through the steps that are happening in the first half of this automation, right? And then next, we're going to build. For the people that are super hard chargers and don't need my help in building it after I show you, I'm going to give you the automation anyway, so you can copy it and play with it after the fact. That's totally fine. You don't have to stop when we stop, but obviously we're not going to be here for 6 hours tonight, so we have time to keep going and going and going. But you'll have access to it, so you'll be able to do that if you want, and continue to build things on top of it and customize it if you are enterprise enough. But what we're going to do this week is we're going to go through what's here. I spread the stuff out so it's easy to read. And then after we do that, then the following week, we're going to add in the next steps and then give you the opportunity to rebuild what it is we build here and customize it to your use case. But you're going to get access to everything that I make right now. I'm going to export it just like the other automation that we had previously that only had 3 steps. As you can see, this one has more than 3 steps, right? And then I'm going to give you the automation so you can upload it and play with it if you want to, right? And let me make sure yep, we are. Okay, so the way this automation is set up, and let me zoom in. We have a lot of different pieces. And I'm definitely looking for how should I say, audience participation, let's put it that way, to make sure that everybody's following me. So definitely have the chat open because we're about to use it. And we see that we have this very first node here on the screen. So we have our first node. If you want to build it, if you want to build something similar with me, just because you want to just get your hands dirty, don't worry about if it works or not, because I'm going to give you the code after. But if you want to, you can try to copy along if you choose. But what I really want you to do is I want you just to look at the pieces now so you understand them. This way, when you look at them, this won't be the first time you're looking at them when you're looking at them on your computer. So this very, very, very first step, it says something. It says the word start automation. I'm going to click on that and open it up, right? And it says start automation. And you see it says trigger times and says mode. And it says stuff like every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every X, and custom, right? It says 9 hours, 0 minutes. It says add cron time. It says all that stuff in there, right? So this is, and remember, we have different types of nodes that we have. So can anybody tell me or put it in the chat, what type of node do you think that node is? What type of node is that? That looks like it should be doing those steps, right? And I saw somebody wrote trigger, and you are correct. It's a trigger node, right? That is the type of node that is. And remember, the purpose of a trigger node, right, is to tell the automation when it's time to start. And there's different types of trigger nodes like we talked about, right? This particular trigger node is going to be set to activate on the schedule, right? Because when you post on social media, you normally post on some type of schedule, like I want to post every day. I want to post every 12 hours. I want to post twice a week. I want to post every Sunday at 9 p.m., whatever it might be, right? So that's what this node is set to do, is set to trigger off the automation once the automation is turned on. Now, in order to find those type of nodes, if you open up the panel, we're not going to add any right now, but we're going to look. You see it says add another trigger, etc. Right? If I click on that, you see that there's different types of trigger nodes that are here, right? So for example, it says trigger manual, right? This runs the flow on clicking a button in N8N, good for getting started quickly, meaning that I don't want it to do anything automatically. I want to just be able to log into my account, click a button, and it starts working. I don't want it to do it on its own. I want to tell it when it's time to start working, right? Then you see this other one says on app event. These are types of ones that you probably, if you've done a lot of stuff on social media in general, you've seen these work, because these are the type of things that happen with, for example, ManyChat, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you have used before, right? ManyChat has a bunch of triggers where it's like somebody sent a DM, somebody commented on the story, or somebody did this, somebody did that, somebody liked your post, whatever the different events are, right? So if I click on this one, you see it's looking for apps to do certain things, right? So for example, you see that look for one, Calendly, right? You could have an automation run every single time somebody creates an event in Calendly, or every time somebody cancels an event in Calendly. And that's just an example. And you have all these other ones, all these other tools that are built in here by default, right? That you can utilize, right? So keep that in mind. So with that said, the type of trigger node we're using right now is going to be one that triggers chronologically anytime somebody actually every single time 9 a.m. happens, I think is what I was going to set it to, right? So that's the first step. Now the second step is we have this second node here, right? And I'm gonna click on it. Now it's named Get Trending Movies because that's what I named it, Get Trending Movies, right? But this is a special type of node. This node, what it does is it makes an API request. You remember we talked about APIs a bunch of times during the during these videos, during these lives. And essentially what an API call essentially is when you have when you make a request to a program to do something, whether it's you make a request to get some data, which is what we're doing, right? But you could also make a request to create some data, delete some data, update some data, change some data, right? Let me say, can we add to the list of the app is not available? If you know how to code, you can add to the list of the app if the app is not available. You can do that. That's the more complex thing. But I will tell you in a little while if a tool isn't available in N8N, what the easier way is to add the tool. And I'm going to show you that in a little while, because the movie tool that we're using isn't part of N8N. So we have to do something special in order to use it. So I'll tell you about it in a little bit. Behold that thought. So again, what this tool is actually doing is it's going to make an API request actually to YouTube. So when you make an API request to the YouTube API, YouTube's owned by Google. So you go to googleapis.com/YouTube, and we use the most recent version 3, and we tell it that we want to search for something. Now, I'm going to break this down more when you're actually typing it out. But really quick, there's a piece in the request where you say, for example, search, and you see it says part is equal to snippet, meaning that I only want the snippet. There's a lot of choices to choose from, but that's what I want. And when you're actually implementing yourself, you'll be able to see the things you can choose from. But you just got to get used to the format. And I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this whole entire URL and I'm going to put it here inside of the chat, right? Don't try to click on it because it's not going to work because you need credentials. So don't click on the link, but you can see how the link is structured. And you can see that inside the link, it says, like, for example, it says googleapis.com, right? /YouTube/v3. It says search because we're going to be making a search. And then we tell it the things we want the search to look for. We want it to look for a snippet and we want it to look under a specific channel, right? So you can give it a channel ID. And the channel ID, just a special identifier for any channel on YouTube. And currently, I believe this is the channel ID for Emergency Awesome, if I'm not mistaken. But the ones that we're going to be using are Emergency Awesome, Pay or Wait, if you know Pay or Wait. And we're also going to be using Iman's reviews to be able to figure out what things we should be talking about. What are the movies that we want to look for? Because remember, our goal is to look up movies. And just in case anybody wasn't here before, let me actually go back to Jitterboss Code. Let me go to my thing. So I'm tripping. There we go. Profile. And I know I posted it not that long ago. So let me see. Okay, this is the one, right? So the thing that we're going to be making is we're building this thing called the mid-AF meme generation tool, right? That's what I called it because I always come up with dumb names for stuff. If you follow me on social media and you see any of my stuff, you know it always has a ridiculous dumb name. That's always really long. So that's what I'm calling it. It's the mid-AF meme generation and scheduling automation tool, right? What it's going to do is it's going to pull trending videos from 4 different YouTube movie views, right? It's going to identify 5 movies, though. So it's going to pull all of their content. So it's going to go to their YouTube and find all their most recent content. Because the goal is, if we go to YouTubers that already have millions of followers, right? The fact that they're posting about a movie is already going to make it popular as it is. But they're also only going to be talking about movies that matter. And we're trying to figure out what the trending movies are. Like, what are the important movies that if I make something about, somebody's going to care. Y'all get where I'm going with that? Like, I want to find the movies that these popular people are talking about. Because Emergency Awesome is only going to make content about stuff that people care about right now. Pay or Wait, she's only going to make content about stuff that she cares about at the moment. Specifically stuff that normally the Black community is interested in, because that's what she does, right? Iman's reviews is only going to talk about, recent nerdy movies and stuff like that, from his perspective. But they're all going to be talking about things that are fresh and are coming out now. So we're going to identify 5 movies from each of the channels that are the most, that they're talking about the most, right? Then once we do that, we're going to generate a mid-AF, meme using DALL-E. We're essentially going to generate a picture that pretty much shows us thinking that the movie is probably not that good, baby, or something like that, right? And then we're going to upload it to Cloudinary, and then we're going to write captions for it, right? And then we're going to, take that content and save it inside of a Google Sheet, turn it into a CSV, so that each day we can upload the content we want to post to Metricool. And Metricool will take care of posting it to all of our different social platforms, right? So it can post it to Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, wherever we want to post it to, right? So that's essentially the goal, right? For the thing that we're going to make. And and this is the first step. After it gets triggered, we need to go into the YouTuber's actual channel, and we're going to need to fetch the data for all of the YouTube videos that they recently created. Is everybody following me? Can y'all give me an emoji or something inside the chat? Let me know that y'all followed that logic, or I can go through it again. But I want to make sure you know what we're saying. Right? I see again. Let me see. What's the system? We're using N8N. We're using N8N. That's where we're at right now. Right? So we're always using N8N in this class. We're not going to use anything else. We're always going to use N8N because N8N is the best system. And my goal is to eventually show you how to run this on your own computer and to run this on your own servers so that you could charge people for it and have it do stuff for you and you can make money. So I'm not going to use any of the other tools like make.com and stuff like that because you can't ever get to the point where it's free for you because of the way that they work. So this gives you a tool that you literally can, put on your own servers, and you really only got to pay the server cost. It might be $20 a month or whatever, depending on how big your audience is, and then you could be charging people whatever price. I saw somebody selling the tool that does something like this, and they sold it to like this big gigantic community that has like 50,000 members, and they sold it for like $500. No shade to them, they built it, right? So they built it and they charge everybody $500 a month or something like that, right? For the tool. I'm showing you how to make your own. You don't have to pay nothing for it. And if you want to charge people $50 or $20 or $30 a month or whatever, you can do that. Let me see. I see again. What's the system? How do we use it? Links and access. Got it. Yes, again. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to go over how to access N8N and stuff like that today. We did that in previous lessons. So definitely go back and look at the recordings of this. But if you just go to N8N.com, N8N.io, that's where the tool is. You have to create an account and all that. I wouldn't bother doing that now. Just after this, watch the videos. But I'm not asking you to follow along. So let's make sure everybody's on the same page. Do not try to do this while I'm doing it right now. Right? I want you to look through and see how the pieces work. We will have another time where we'll be able to go through one by one, and then if something breaks, then I'll be able to go and help you fix it, and we'll have like a live session where we're doing that, or a live build session. Right now, we're not doing it. If you happen to try to code along right now and something breaks, I'm not going to stop the class to help you at the moment. We have a whole nother class where we're going to do that. So that's okay for you to do that. Just know that that's not what we're doing right now. I'm going over how the pieces in this actually work. And then, like I said, in the later lesson, which then you try to build it, and then I will do it with you. And then you try to build it, and etc. Because if you remember from the first lesson, remember the teaching philosophy is EDIP, right? So we're always doing a different step of that process, and different people learn differently at different parts of that process. And the E stands for explanation, which you already did. In the last class, we had a big 50 slide presentation all about N8N. That's what we did in the last lesson, where we explain what something is, right? The next part of learning is demonstration. That's me showing it to you. So right now I'm showing you how it works. The next part is imitation. That's where I do it, you do it. I do it, you do it, we do it together. So this way that you can actually implement the things that we did. And then the last part is practice, where I give you something to do, you go home and do it, and then you come back and show it to me, and I tell you what you did wrong and how you could do it better and fix it, which is the last piece, where you practice, and then I critique the things that you did so that it can be fixed or help you fix the problems, right? Explanation, demonstration, imitation, practice, which hits each learning style. And even people that love imitation, you can imitate a whole lot better if you know what the heck you're looking at and you've also seen it done before. So we are right now, we're in demonstration. We're not in imitation, we're not in practice mode. Right? And trust me, that is the best way to do it. If you know anything about my background and andragogy or whatever, I'm the senior director of AI programming and cloud computing at a national education company, and I've also taught, tech for 7 years. So I promise you, it's more, you get more juice out of the squeeze if you go through the steps. So anyway, let me clear that. So with that said, the purpose of this node, like I said, is to get the trending movies from from YouTube, right? So again, only thing this is doing is actually reaching out to YouTube, right? It's going to reach out to YouTube and then gather in the data that YouTube gives it back, right? And it's going to be in this format here that's a little bit difficult for humans to read at first, but it's pretty well organized. Once you start to see, you'll be like, oh, I see what it's doing there. I see how it's organizing. It's organizing it in a systemized way the computer can read. But you can read the data in it. It just looks like a lot of information, right? So, for example, we said, so let's demystify this data. It tells you right here at the top of this data that we get back from YouTube. This is the data, like if we were actually run it. I test a step, unpin and test it. I should get some data. There we go. I got 11 search results this time. Pin the data again. I got brand new data, right? So you see here, it says the kind of request that was made was a YouTube request, and we asked for a list of search responses. That's what we got back, right? The region code, Delaware, or whatever. None of that really matters. But then once you actually get down to the snippet, because I want to read everything, you see we get to the snippet, it tells you when this video was published. It was published on June 28th, which I believe is today, right? So it's published on June 28th at 20:25:51 Zulu time, which is GMT 0, which is what, Greenwich Mean Time, which some of y'all might be on, and other people on different time zones. So, but it was published at that time. And the channel ID was this channel ID. The title was Fantastic Four trailer. Galactus becomes a god. The Celestials, hidden details. This is the title of the video, and here's the description of the video: Fantastic Four trailer, Galactus, blah blah blah, Franklin Richards, Thanos, whatever. Right? That's what the video was about. Right? And if we were to let's say go to YouTube. And let's see. Let's look up Emergency Awesome. Right? This is the channel we're pulling it from. And this is the most recent video that they have. Fantastic Four trailer. Galactus becomes a god. Here is here's all the data underneath it, etc. And all the stuff it's about. We just grab the videos this way, actually. And you can see the different videos that are here, right? Now, it's great. We can read it like this, right? Because this is in human readable format for us to read it and consume it. But in order for us to give it to our AI, right, to be able to process it correctly, we need the data like this. So this is the first video. This video, let me put it over here. Go ahead, open this up again. And this here, right? And then you'll see the first video essentially is that first Fantastic Four trailer video that you see right here. This is the data for it here. Here's the description for it. It gives you the URL of the image that they're using. So let's say, for example, that is the URL of the image. If I copy this and put it in here, right? And if you were to click on it and go to it, it'll show you that image, right? That you saw when you looked at the YouTube, right? You see, that's the thumbnail image for that video. Does everybody see that? Do y'all see where I'm going? Yes, yes, no, no, maybe, maybe. Question. Let me know inside the chat. But all we're doing, and we don't have to read it, I'm just doing that to show it to you so you can verify this is really what it's doing. It's really making an API call to YouTube, and it's going to YouTube and capturing the data from this YouTuber's channel. That's what we're doing right now. We're capturing the data from that YouTuber's channel. So you would expect, if this is working correctly, and you see it says emergency awesome for the channel title, you would expect that if it's working correctly, the next video we see in the list that we're given to our AI is going to be Avengers Doomsday. Now you've made them mad. And there you go. Avengers Doomsday. Now you've made them mad. You expect for the third one to say Superman trailer. He just made the biggest mistake, right? And we expect to see Superman trailer. He just made the biggest mistake. We expect for the thumbnail image to be that thumbnail image that we see there. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to share it here. Right? And if I click on it, now you see that Superman thumbnail. The same thumbnail that you see that they're using here is what we see here. Right? So to put this back in perspective, what this tool that we're using here, this API tool, is it lets us actually reach out and talk to different programs, like, for example, YouTube, and get the programmatic data, the JSON data that is used in order to, to feed the application, right? And for us to actually grab that data for ourselves and use it in our automations, right? Because our AI and our tools are going to work much better if we just give it to them in the format that they need it to be able to understand it the best. Because these tools are not us, right? They're not going to go to a website and read it the same way. They're going to have to crawl it, pull data from it, etc. Let's just grab the important data that makes up the page, and let's grab that data and let's use it inside of our application. So we're going to grab all of the most recent videos from Emergency Awesome, all the data from them, so this way that we can utilize them in our application. So that is what this node is doing. Is everybody clear on what the purpose of this node is? And if not, I can go through it again. I want to make sure we're all clear why we need this node. We need, in order for us to be able to generate our content, we need to have somewhere where we're figuring out what's the best thing for us to talk about. And so we decided that we're going to go to Emergency Awesome, because as you just saw, Emergency Awesome, I didn't look how many subscribers there he's up to now. He's up to 4.66 million subscribers. Reputable source, for what's the best video for us to make right now. All right. So the great thing, the thing that is amazing about N8N is that normally, if you build a tool like this, the tool kind of like sits by itself. The great thing about N8N is lets us connect these tools together. So after we run our trigger node and we start to go gather the movies, we can then take the data that we gathered from this node and give it to the next. Does everybody see that? So we can take the data from here and give it to the next, right? So the data that we got from Get Trending Movies, we can take it and give it to another node and have that node process the data. And the thing about it, as you can see, that YouTube data, while it has a bunch of wonderful content that's amazing, we don't care about all that content, right? Like, it's way too much info in there. So we only need, what we want to figure out is we only care about the titles of the movies, right? That's all we care about, is the title of the movies themselves. So this way that we can, end up writing our own review about it or something like that. Maybe we might want the descriptions too. So you can change it around to grab the descriptions too, maybe. But right now I'm just extracting the titles. But we're going to go ahead and grab the titles, right? Before we give it to OpenAI, right? So we're going to grab the titles themselves. And that's where we're going to write our first bit of custom code. And I'm going to run through how to write this code from scratch, right? Which you don't have to become a code genie to get really good at writing code, to do these type of automations and to build these type of things for clients. But you got to know how to do a little bit, right? Like in order to be able to fix a car, you need to understand how to change the oil and change the tire and how to hook up the machine and let it read what the check engine light means at that time and what's supposed to happen. You need to get that good at this stuff. You don't need to be able to be an engineer that builds a car from scratch. Yeah, I get what I'm saying? You don't need to be able to build a combustion engine in your backyard like Iron Man or something. You just need to be able to play with it a little bit. So we do need to know how to do a couple things. And normally what we have to do is we need to get good at one thing with code. And only one, you could do thousands of things with code, obviously. Like, I won't go into all different jobs I've had and stuff like that, when it comes to coding, but I've done everything from launch a satellite into space and, deal with ads on the website and, showing ads and a lot of different things in between. So you can do anything with code. But the only thing that you need to know how to do is you need to be able to know how to take lists of data and pull out the data that you want. That's what I'm gonna try to make you get good at. So I'm gonna let you get good enough at reading the code where you can do that. And the great thing about N8N is you don't normally have to write the code yourself from scratch. You can always click the little AI assistant and it can tell you what you need to do in order to do it, right? Even if you know how to code, you could just have it do it for you a lot of the time. But you won't know if it did it right unless you can read it. So it's kind of like being a supervisor. You can tell somebody else to do the work, but you still need to check and make sure it got done correct, right? So you don't always need to do it from scratch yourself. Unless sometimes only writing 2 lines of code is probably better for you to write the code if you know how to do it than have the AI do it because you already know how to do it anyway. And you're gonna have to write more instructions to tell it to write the 2 lines of code. So, there's a give and take, right? Let me see. Will it be posted in the replays? Yeah, you're 100% gonna have a replay of the recording. I'm assuming this is probably your first time here if you're asking that. So let me just show you for the other people that may be their first time. All of the code different recordings are let me see. If you go into Digital Boss Code, all right, let me just go over here. You go to Classroom. They're not in the replay vault. This is its own standalone course. Also, by the way, this AI Gold Rush course is amazing because, there's such a great instructor teaching it that might be inside this room right now. But this one right here says Coding Systems. You click on that, and this is going to be right here under episode 5 when we finish it. It's going to say N8N and Agents Masterclass Part 2, right? And it's going to be right underneath, right? So all you have to do is go in there, and that's where you get it from. And underneath it, it's going to have notes of what we did during the lesson. And then any resources that we did are going to be down there. Like, for example, when we did the Build Your First Automation one, I put all the step-by-step instructions that we went through is in there. And also links to download the automation template that we use and to get to all the websites that we use in order to create everything. It's all in there, right? And each of them it's the same thing. But all the notes, the slides, all the information, all the links, if you want to read more, everything is going to be in there. And if the chat transcript is helpful, sometimes I'll put that in there too. So the chat transcript from that lesson is there because it was helpful for the introduction to APIs and OMDB, which we're using OMDB today to deal with the movies in a second. So everything is gonna be in here, and all of them are pretty long lessons. I think the first one is 2 hours and 40. This one's 2:29. This one's 4 hours and 1 minute. We were really cooking that day. And this one's 1 hour and 55, but they're supposed to be 2 hours. Okay, so keep all that in mind. That's where you get it from. And I'm just gonna go ahead and copy the link and put it in here so you can bookmark it. And all of the recordings are going to be in there. And remember, Code Different is going to have about 30 lessons. So all 30 of them will be in that recording list. You can go back anytime and rewatch anything that you need and see any of the resources, etc. All right, so back to what we were doing. So this is our first custom code. Now, before I go in here again, remember, the first step was, well, first step really is the automation gets triggered, right? So we have a trigger node starts the automation. The second step that's going to happen is this node that we have here, right, is going to make an API request to YouTube. So it's going to make whatever API URL we put in here. It's going to make an API request to that, and then gather the responding data, right? Whatever data came back, that's the data that it's going to give it, right? So that is that's the goal there, right? The next step that was going to happen after this is, so after it does that step, it gathers the data. It's going to pass it to the next node. It says, so is it better to go watch those before attending this class? That's a personal choice. Depends on you. They're all kind of standalone, but of course we are, have a goal to do something by the end. So I mean, you definitely could do that. But today what we're doing is we're walking through the automation, and we're talking about all the pieces that are involved in the automation. And then next week, we're going to actually then go ahead and try to build the automation, right? So that's a personal choice for you. So after we go ahead and we get the trend in movies, and I'm going to watch the chat, unless it's something I think I should stop for. I'm going to wait till I answer the next one so I could speak straight through. Because if anybody has any attention issues, or maybe somebody could, there could be a bunch of different things. If I stop too many times, they're gonna lose their whole train of thought. So let me just run straight through this, then we'll go back through and then I'll answer stuff, unless it's something I think I should stop. So again, we start with the trigger. We gather the data. After we gather the data, we're going to go ahead, and this code is going to extract the titles, right, from that long list of data. So this big, gigantic splat of data that we get back from YouTube. And I will tell you, YouTube is the most ugliestly formatted data ever in world history. Most APIs you pull from it, data looks a little bit neater, actually. But YouTube, that's the way the data. I can't do anything about it. That's the way it looks. That's the way they have it. That's the way they have it. And so we got to work with that. But the only thing that we want is we want the titles of each one. So essentially, what we're going to do is we are going to write some custom code that actually extracts the titles and only the titles from the data. This way that we're not passing around these big amounts of data. Because passing around data, bigger the data, the longer it takes to pass them. As you know, if you want to download a 1-minute video from the internet, it's way faster than if you download, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which is stupid long, like 4 hours or something like that. Or if you want to download Titanic, or something like that, it's going to take you way longer than to download a 1-minute video. So because we know that, we obviously know this longer data is going to take up more space than the shorter data that we only need. So we're going to extract out of here only the data that we need. So when we're talking to these other tools, we don't have to give it data that we don't care about, right? So everybody, if you weren't listening before, everybody lock in for a second, and I'm going to show you something that's going to take you a while to get. I'm going to be giving you the code as we're going. Every time I write some code, I'm just going to give it to you. But the goal is eventually you'll be able to read the code and understand like what it's trying to do. But I don't expect you to look at this one time and be like, I'm a master. I can write this code whenever I want. But the only type of code I'm going to show you how to write is the type of code you need to extract data out of APIs, which if you know how to do, you can make a whole bunch of money with selling automations and stuff, because that's going to be the missing piece. Somebody asked me, hey, what do you do if you have a tool that you want to add, right? But it's not included in N8N, or you want to use a different way than they're showing you. This is what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to write enough code to be able to make API calls, extract data, and pass data somewhere else. Which, for example, when I used to teach my coding courses, and I would teach this thing called a coding boot camp, where I would show people that have no coding background, and I would work with them for 8 hours a day for 13 weeks straight, for 5 days a week. So basically 40 hours a week, they sit in front of me and I teach them how to code nonstop, 8 hours a day, like it's their job. And they know how to do this by about the third day of class. So after about 24 hours of teaching, they know how to do this thing I'm showing, right? And you don't have to pick it up in 3 days, right? So this isn't something that's like super advanced. This is something that you learn early along in the process when you're learning how to code. And this is the only type of thing you need to know for the whole entire class, because AI has made it super easy for this use case. So with that said, the code that you're looking at here, this first line says console.log items. You can ignore that. That doesn't really matter. But basically, this is the code that basically tells it to take all this data and print it out, right? As a matter of fact, this is not even written in a way that's going to work at the moment. I'd have to say JSON. I'd have to write a whole bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is just a little bit of code to help out a human to print stuff out when they're debugging. We don't really need this right now. This next step is where actually all of the magic actually happens. So the first line of code, I'm going to copy this and I'm gonna put this here inside the chat. Right, and this is the first time in class I've ever looked at any code. So no previous lessons will help you with this. This is the first time we're looking at code, really in detail. So where it says const results is equal to, and what you see is a little bit of braces and a semicolon. I'll start with the semicolon, right? And semicolons are used in code, in JavaScript particularly, to basically signify to the computer, this is the end of a line. This is the end of an idea, right? It's like how we use periods in English, right? At the end of a sentence, we put a period to say that we're done with the sentence. This, in code, we put a semicolon that lets it know this is the end of our statement. And the only reason why we do that is because when they were writing code back in the day, they used dots for something else other than ending lines. So when they needed something for ending lines, they used semicolons because they said, nobody even really uses semicolons when they write anyway, so this is easy, but just put that in there, right? So this is what they use to end lines, because they use dots for something else, right? So essentially what this is saying is, I'm going to create something. I'm going to create a constant, right, called results, and I'm going to make it an empty list. That's what this says right here. And you can go ahead and put that in the ChatGPT and ask it and tell it, I'm writing JavaScript, explain this line of code to me, right? And you can do that right now live in ChatGPT, right? And then you can paste what it tells you inside the chat. But you go to ChatGPT right now, ask it that question, and it'll tell you a variation of what I said, and then you can go ahead and paste it inside the chat. I want to make sure everybody should have a ChatGPT account. It's free. And go ahead and everybody should go ahead and do that. So I want you to know what these lines do, because you need to write this exact line if you end up doing this, using it to make money, hundreds of times probably. So go to ChatGPT, copy in the code, say, I'm writing JavaScript, explain this code to me. And again, my human explanation of it is I'm creating this thing called results. It's a constant. And essentially what I'm saying is that results is going to be an empty list inside the program's memory. I'm making a spot in the program's memory to hold this empty list of stuff because I need somewhere where I'm eventually going to put all this data that I want to give to the next node. So I need to put it somewhere. And so I'm going to put it here. I'm going to make a spot inside the memory. It's like if you were to open up a notebook. Everybody has had notebooks, right, in school. Y'all can see me in the camera. It's like if I opened up my notebook, I opened it up, and I went to a certain page, and I wrote at the top of the page the word results, right? And I said that page in the book is where I'm going to write all my results at. That's the same exact thing I'm doing with this program. All I'm saying is that I would like to create a place in this program's memory, and I would like to call it results, and I want to store stuff in it. But right now I'm going to leave it empty, just like if you put a title at the top of a blank page in your notebook, and it has nothing on it now, but eventually you're going to write something, right? If you have a diary, you might write at the top of the diary, June 28th, 2025, right? That's your diary entry for June 28th, 2025. It starts off being empty, but eventually you're going to put something into it. You're going to write something to it. And then there's now going to be something in there. So anybody find anything on ChatGPT? Man, did everybody fall asleep? Looks like everybody's sleeping because nobody done put nothing in ChatGPT stuff. Oh, wait, there I go. I got one person locked in. All right. Let's see. The line JavaScript, boom. You're creating a new array called results, right? Array is another word for list. Exactly. Const means the variable can't be reassigned to something else, but the contents of the array can be changed, right? And creates an empty array. So you're saying make a constant named results and start it as an empty list where I can store values later. Exactly. Right? So you went and asked ChatGPT and it said, same thing I said, but you should always trust and verify. It says, sorry, can you repeat the assignment? Oh, my bad. But the assignment was this first line of code that's here, right? It says const results is equal to this empty thing here. I wanted you to take that code, right? I put it inside the chat already, and I want you to take that code. I want you to go to ChatGPT, right? And this is still open right now. I only saw one person do it. It's like 40 people here. So we need more than one person to do it. But you're going to go to ChatGPT. You're going to take that line of code. You're going to tell it that I'm writing JavaScript. Explain this code to me. And just ask ChatGPT to explain it to you. And then whatever ChatGPT gives you back, put it inside the chat. Right? So whatever ChatGPT gives you back, put it inside the chat. See, somebody else just finished it. Const, this is a keyword used to declare a constant variable. Once a variable is declared with const, you must assign it a value right away, and you can't reassign it later. And then it shows you an example. Const name is equal to Crystal. That's valid. And then name is equal to Denard. You can't do that. Yep, because you can't change it, right? After the fact. Let me see. This is results is the name of the variable, correct? And it could be used to do anything, right? And I see another example here. Yep, keep adding your examples and make sure you read through it, right? Because I want to make sure you understand what that line of code is doing. But it doesn't make any sense for me to speed through the content if everybody doesn't understand what we're doing, because our whole goal here is not just to, for me to show you some stuff and for it to be cool. I'm trying to turn you into me, trying to turn you into a practitioner where if you wanted to have your own agency, you want to do these things, right? If you do all of the lessons we're going to do over the next, 6 to 7 months, by the end of it, you will be the person people come to make the thing. You won't need to, pay the next $50 a month random product that shows up. You'll be able to put out your own on your own. Remember, that is the goal of this class. This is the beginner to advanced class. We're going to take you from beginner and turn you into an advanced AI practitioner. So I'm showing you how to do the actual stuff. Not how to go into ChatGPT, but to talk to the AI directly, put it into your own tool, make your own product. Because I know you have to be asking yourself every single week you see this brand new AI random product that you can talk to, and they can randomly look through this, and do this, and do this, and do that. And they all look like they're just using basically some version of ChatGPT underneath the hood. But you're like, man, I wonder how they make those things. That's what you're in my class to do, to learn how to do that, to learn how to not have to pay $99 a month or $100 a month to these other people, to just know how to do it and then charge other people the money, because not everybody's going to learn how to do this stuff. But if you take the time, you can get good enough to be able to do it. For the people that love AI clones, wait till I get up to that part and I show you how to. And you're gonna be like, man, I'm not gonna say name to any of these tools that people pay for or whatever. But once we get up to that part, which is a little bit more advanced, but it's still just gonna be passing around data just like we're doing now. And when you see how to make your own AI clone by coding yourself with no restrictions, where it'd be like, you can't say Kim Kardashian, you can't say Drake, you can't say Trump, you can't say Elon, you can't say Obama, with none of those problems. It's going to change your life. Oh, way more advanced than an AI chatbot, but you could make a chatbot. Cool. Perfect. Cool. All right, awesome. So I'm seeing people are getting their answers from ChatGPT. I'm actually going to actually make a copy of these meeting notes, since they are going to have all these answers in it, and I'm going to put this in the recording. So if somebody from the future is watching the recording, just scroll down a little bit and you can click and you can see the chat too, and see what people were writing in the chat. I'm gonna save this. Okay. So now that everybody's going to ChatGPT and getting the answer, right, and seeing what this line of code means, remember what we're doing in this first line of code, because you're going to see lines of code like this all the time when we're building these type of things, right? And don't let it go over your head or anything like that. It's not doing anything special. All you're saying is, hey, computer program, right? I would like to create a space inside of your memory for me to store a list of stuff. And I'm going to call it results, right? And then it's going to make that space in memory for you so that you can put things in it later. Because we're going to take the data from this stuff we got from trending movies, right? And we're going to take out the titles from trending movies and stick them inside results, inside the computer's memory, right? So let me say that again. We are going to take the data from here. We're going to take the titles, like for example, this Avengers Doomsday title right here, right? You see, that's the second thing inside the title list here, because we took it out of this big, long list of data, right? And then we put it inside of our smaller container of data, right? And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're going to keep passing this data around, and we'd rather manipulate smaller data than having to send around this gigantic list that has a bunch of stuff in it that we don't need. So that's why we're transforming the data. So let me ask you a question, the people that are locked in right now, right? What type of node do you think that we're creating right now? What type of node is this? Is it a trigger node? Is it an action node? Is it a data transformation node? Is it a logic node? What type of node is this? When I say I'm going to take that big list of data and change it into the tiny list of data, right? I see a couple people said action. It's not an action node, right? It's not an action node. That's a good guess. But you'll see an action node when you see it. So the action node is always going to do something like send an email, right? Post to Facebook, right? It's going to do a thing, right? Oh, I see people saying it right now. I see people saying transfer, but it's transform, right? I see somebody wrote transform exactly. We're going to transform the data. We're taking data from another source, changing it in this node, right? We're going to change it in this node and make it another type of data. So we're modifying information between steps to get it in the right format, right? So whenever you see that, that's why I remember I told you those are really helpful because you can't give data in the same format to every API. You have to put the data in the right format before you send it to wherever you're going to send it to. You got to give it the data in the way that particular API wants the data. Right? It said, yes, I have an answer from ChatGPT. Yeah, go ahead and post it. Go ahead and post the answer. So that is the so that's what that first line of code is doing. Now I'm going to move down to the next line of code. A little bit more complicated. I'm going to grab the whole block because it doesn't make sense as a singular unit. You need to see the whole, see it as a whole group. And said, oh, because we took it from YouTube and then we have to transform it to whatever. Exactly. That's exactly the reason why. We got to take it from YouTube and then turn it into the way that we want it, that we want to give it to the next thing. And you're not going to know what way the data needs to look unless you just already know. But the way that you always find out the way the data is supposed to look is you go to something called API documentation for whatever tool you want to use. Let's say, for example, if we were using Klaviyo. A lot of people probably use Klaviyo for their email list to say Klaviyo API docs, right? API overview, right? For Klaviyo. And it's going to tell you inside of here, like the way that it wants the data to look. This is the way that it's going to give you the data back. And it tells you, in order for you to give me the data, I need you to give it to me with this information like this. And the type of responses I'll give you is if it works, I'm going to tell you this. If you made a mistake, I'm going to tell you this. If I made a mistake, I'm going to tell you this. Right? And this is just an example, right? So you can read that. Not important for you to read right now. That's just something I picked out randomly. But at the end of the day, it's telling you the way that the data needs to look. Like it's telling you, this is what I need. Give me this information, and I will give you back information like this. Give me this info, and I will give you this. So we have to give it what it's asking. So if we wanted to talk to the Klaviyo API, we need to make sure we give it the company ID. We got to tell it what to filter by for this particular thing. This is get client reports, right? We got to tell it what time frame we're trying to find. Are we looking for all time, last 30 days, last 365 days, last 90 days? We got to tell it what it's supposed to. We got to tell it like what it's supposed to, what time frame to look for it in. Page size. We got to tell it how many things to look up. So every API has its own little like way that you're supposed to talk to it. And so the only way you ever know is to look at the documentation. Like you won't know it. There's never a time where you'll just know how every API works. That's why you need to know how to read the stuff correctly. Because once you know how to read it, it's like you don't know what's inside of a book before you read it. You don't know what's inside of a movie before you watch it, right? But because you know how to watch a movie, you know how to read a book, right? The book is probably a better example. Get rid of the movie. But because you know how to read a book, you can open up the book and then read the book and figure out what it's all about, right? You have the ability to do that because you know how to read. So by knowing that's the reason why I'm going through this stuff first, because it's a lot of stuff, right? But if you know how the nodes interact with each other, right? If you know how to read the code, then you'll be able to do whatever you want. Because anytime you see a new tool, you'll say, let me open the documentation. Let me read how it wants the data structured. Now I know how the data is supposed to be structured. Now, this other tool that I want to give the data to, it actually wants the data like this, though. So then now you need to know, okay, let me write some code in between that says take this data from this thing, transform it, and turn it into the data that I need for the other application, right? I'm gonna say, oh, it's just one site. Each software has its own site. Each software has its own site, right? So when you want to know how to use YouTube, you got to look at YouTube API. You want to know how to use Instagram, you got to read the Instagram API docs. You want to know how to use any of them, you have to use those docs. But the beautiful thing about N8N, because obviously that would get out of hand, right? That's why it has all these integrations already built in, right? So you don't actually have to know how all of them work. Because, for example, I think Klaviyo's in, right? No, it's not. But MailChimp probably is, right? There we go. MailChimp is right there. So just don't use Klaviyo and you don't have to read the documentation. MailChimp has documentation, but they already wrote the code for you to use MailChimp. So all you have to do is drag and drop, and then now you can just use it. If you want to send an email, you could write that code from scratch, but there's already an email node, right? There's already a Gmail node to connect your Gmail and send messages with your Gmail, right? All this other stuff, right? That's the beautiful thing about N8N is that stuff is built in already. So the only time you ever have to, write a little bit of code yourself, etc., is when you need to do something more fancy. Which the more fancy stuff is normally how you make the extra money, right? Because it's normally when you came up with something somebody else didn't think about. Because I know there's always times when you say, man, I wish I could do this inside the app, but it doesn't let me, right? Once you finish this, gone are the it doesn't let me days. If you want to do it, if you want to create a freaking, image in DALL-E, and then you want to make an AI avatar over here, and then you want to take two images and stack them on top of each other, put them together, and then you want to send it to Canva, and then you want to do this and do that, do whatever the heck you want to do, because you can just tell it to do whatever you need for your use case. You don't have to make it work with whatever the tool lets you do. You just do whatever you want. When you know how to use these tools, you know how to code a little bit, you know how to do this, you just do what you want. That's the reason why, you can make money from selling this type of stuff to contractors and small businesses and stuff like that, because they always have these crazy unique use cases where in order to try to make it work, they got to pay for like 30 different subscriptions to do anything. And now you could just be like, oh, you need to be able to do boom, 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 and boom, pay me $500 and pay me $100 a month to keep up with it. And I got you. And boom, magically their thing exists. You saved them a whole bunch of money and you made them. That's the key. But in order to be able to do that, we got to know how the pieces fit together. Right? Okay. I think I finished going over this, right? So, no, I didn't. I had to think for a second. I didn't finish going over it. I only talked about the first line. So the second line, do the same thing. Copy this, put this inside of ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT what this code does. I'm gonna read through it for you, but ask ChatGPT what it does. And this is what's known as a loop, the for loop. And basically what it's saying, as you go to ChatGPT and look it up, it's basically saying that for every single item in this list of items, which is saying go into the items, grab the first item, because in computers they start numbers from 0. So the first thing is number 0, not number 1. 1 is the second thing. A little bit weird, you get used to it after a while, but they start from but computer programming starts from 0. So the first thing is 0. So take the first thing, right? Grab the JSON out of it and grab all the items. You'll get used to the way that works. But grab all this stuff, right? That's going to get me access to this long list. So it's telling me to keep going through the list until I go through every single item in the list. That's what this means. For every item in this long list, do this code to each thing in the list, right? And then we'll talk about what the code does. But it's saying for everything in the list, right? And to make it make sense, remember, each one of these things represents a video, right? So we have 5 different items in here, right? In this list that I'm showing you. If I go ahead and look at it as a table, well, actually, no, it won't, because one big thing and then the things in it. But the first thing is the first movie. I mean, not first movie, the first video. Then you see that little comma that separates the next one. Then you see I have a second one for Avengers Doomsday. Then I go down, another comma right here. Then I have the next thing after that, which is the Fantastic Four trailer. They did the thing. Then it's the next one, right? Then it's this one, and etc. Right? As long as the list is. And what it's essentially telling you is, for every single one of those items, right? Exactly a loop. That's exactly what it is, a loop. It's going to keep going through each one of the items until it gets to the end of the list, right? And then it's going to do this code in between for each of the items in the list. So before I move on to the code inside, everybody understand what this part is doing. I'm going to copy this separately. And just like give me an emoji on that if you understand that that is saying that for every single item in the list, right? Go through each one. For every item in the list, go through each item in the list. For every item, go through the items. So go through that whole list of videos. Remember, we're going through this list, which is just all these YouTube videos that Emergency Austin posted. So go to this one, do something to it. Go to that 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 one, and just keep going and going and going until you get to the end of the list. Cool. Right? But I don't expect you to be able to repeat writing this yet. But this is the type of code you'll write a lot, so it's going to look real familiar to code that you're going to write often. The next line says, right? I see a few people said they got it. Right? I'm going to keep going. Says now the next line says, let title equal item.snippet.title. Right? Now, I really didn't have to write let. I just wanted to show you that there's another word you can use instead of const. This one says let, even though it definitely could be a const because we're not changing it. But let means that's a value that you're saving where you can change it. The way I like to tell my students when I'm teaching them how to code, and that's all I'm teaching them in a programming class, I tell them that they should look at const like writing in pen, and you can look at let as writing in pencil, right? Because with let, I can change the whole thing, right? With const, it's results, it's going to stay results. All you can do is put data inside of it, right? But with this, I can change it from a number to a list to a paragraph, that we call strings. We call, a bunch of letters and characters or whatever. We call it a string in JavaScript. But basically just like you can look at it as like a paragraph of content, but I could just put a paragraph of content there. Like for example, this is a string, right? That's what we call them. Strings is basically just like, text, right? That you'd read as like the same way you'd read like a sentence or something like that. But I can change it to that. I can make it anything I want whenever I want. I can change it as many times as I want. I don't even have to give it a value to start. It can start off being nothing, and I can give it a value later, right? We're not actually going to do that. You pretty much almost will never do that in the type of code that we're writing, but it just creates the type of code that you can change, right? But it works the same way as const. It's with that added caveat that you can change it. So go ahead and take this line of code, and you can put this line of code inside of ChatGPT and ask it to explain that to you. So what it's going to do is it's going to take that content, right, from the list. And so each one of these items is going to be the video. As a matter of fact, to make it more descriptive, I could actually change this to video. I'll just say video and change that to video, right? To make it more clear what we're talking about. So for each video, right, in the list of videos, right, we're going to go ahead and take the title out of it. This is the line of code that extracts the title out of the that long list. Well, out of the smaller part of the list, right? This is the line of code that actually does that part. So what we're saying is we're going to go into each one of these things, like, for example, this first one right here, right? This one right here, actually, the items, and this is the first thing right here. So you saw I messed up for a second when I was reading it because YouTube content is mad hard to read, as you can see. But it's mad freaking long and a lot of stuff for no reason, right? But you see, as you're looking at it, it has this thing in here called snippet, right? So we're going to go into snippet. So when we say video.snippet, that's what we're saying. We're going to go into snippet. And then inside snippet, we're going to find the title. So we're going to go into the video, which is each one of these individual items. Remember, we're looking in items. See, we're looking at items bracket 0.json.items, right? And the reason why I'm using YouTube on purpose is because if you can get used to reading YouTube, all the other ones are going to be easy to read. So if it looks like it's hard for you to see it, trust me, it is. It is hard to see it because it's YouTube and then data is convoluted. It's also an API that you might want to use a lot. So rather than show you something that's a lot simpler like Instagram, I'm showing you YouTube now because I already showed you a simple one like 2 lessons ago when I first showed you APIs. So now I'm showing you a more complex one with more moving parts. So this is one of the harder ones to read. But you go look, but these items here, this is the list of items I'm looking for, right? This is the first item in the list. And then I'm going into the snippet section. And inside the snippet section is the title. Because I'm going to go to REPL real quick. Because the only way that's going to make sense is if you could see it fully written out. So for those of you that have your REPL account set up, you can open that now if you want. And you can write in there too if you would like to. You get a second to turn this on. I'm going to tell it to create an app real quick. Choose a template. And I'm going to use Node.js so it can look at JavaScript. And when you're making something in JSON, which is what you keep hearing me say that word, is short for JavaScript object notation, right? So JSON, JavaScript object notation. And it's basically how you describe things, right? So that JavaScript can understand what you're talking about. And we call anything that in the real world would be a noun, we call it an object, right? What is Replit? Don't go to Replit right now. If you don't already know what it is, don't go to it now. It's just a cool tool that you can use to like write code really quick and ask coding questions too, but we're not going to go over it right now. Right now, I'm just using it as a teaching tool. So you could just use ChatGPT, so don't worry about it if you don't already have it. But if you go to video number 2, that's the video where I went over. So if you go back, you want to look up how to use REPL. In lesson number 2, that's lesson where I went over it. But you don't need to follow along and use it right now or anything like that. You'll see what I'm using it for right now in a second. I'm not using it to tell you need to use it. I'm only using it to like write the code on the screen, and you'll see in a second. So basically what you do with objects what an object is in JavaScript. An object is a noun, right? Is a noun. And what I mean by that is if you were making like a video game, let's say like Super Mario Brothers, or if you would play Super Mario or Sonic, right? You would represent Mario as an object, right? If I was to describe myself, I would describe myself in code as an object. Like for example, if I go ahead and make a thing called me, or let's say Arthur, then I would write object notation, right? So I put curly braces like this, and then I would describe myself. I might say something like name, right? And I'm gonna say my name is Arthur McDonald. Don't laugh at my middle name. I don't get to choose it. I don't know what my parents were doing. Well, I know what they were doing. They're copying my dad's name, right? And I don't know why his name is Daddy. Anyway, but at the end of the day, Arthur McDonald Bernier Jr., right? That's my name. Might say something like Instagram handle, right? To describe me, right? And then you could say, okay, Instagram handle at Big Papa Code, right? Then you might have something underneath here where it could say something like possessions. And in this case, I might want one of those lists. And the list might have stuff like, I don't know, first possession is going to be another object. And let's say it's a PS5. And describe the PS5. It probably has a name called PS5. It has a, description or something like that, right? Of whatever you describe it as, et cetera, et cetera. This is how your programs store data underneath the hood. And that's why every single time you look at data from an application, it always looks something like this. But all it's trying to do is describe stuff, right? So when we go and we look at the data from this, I'm gonna go ahead and copy it and put it over here. And I'm gonna say data, I'm gonna say const data is equal to, whoops, thought I copied it. I didn't copy it. Const data, boom. And then we're gonna go here. Paste it. Why is it not copied? Let's try that. Copy. Did I just not hit it properly the other time? There we go. All right. So this is just a really, really long way for it to be able to describe the stuff on the page, right? The objects, right? So, for example, here, you have this object called Arthur, right? So we have this object called Arthur. We have the name of it with my name. We have my Instagram handle and some stuff I have, right? This is a way to describe me. And probably if, like I said, we were doing a program, we'd have a whole lot more data, like my age, my weight, my height, etc. If anybody's ever connected their phone to the car, to their car, you're like with these two interfaces connecting to each other, they have to have names of each other to be able to talk to each other and know how to pass data to each other over Bluetooth, right? So when you go and connect your phone, it'll say something like Carla's iPhone, right? Crystal's Android phone or whatever they're gonna call it, right? Like it has a name. You can reset that name in the program, right? Like you go in, you might be able to reset that name or whatever. You go into the program and reset it. You can do all of that stuff inside in the application. Like you can change the way that the applications talk to each other by changing the data that they have, right? So if this was my iPhone might have AJ's iPhone in it, because my family and stuff call me AJ for Arthur Jr., right? So they might do that, right? Now, when we are having our applications talk to each other, this is the data we get back from YouTube. The first part of the data, right, inside this object here, right, that's in this list of objects, the first type of data is this is a search result. They're YouTube video results. Then inside of them, they each have the individual videos are all inside of it, and I'm collapsing them so you can see them one by one, right? Right. And we have all these different videos, right? The first one we open up has this. It's a search result. This is the tag. This is the ID information. It has snippet data inside it. Inside the snippet is what tells it what date it was, what channel ID it comes from, the title, the description, then the thumbnails, and the thumbnails are objects too, right? So they have a URL where it's located. They have a width, they have a height. The medium one has a width of 320, height of 180, and a different URL. And then this one that's high has a different width, a different height, and a different URL, right? Inside the thumbnails. We have the title of the channel that it comes from. We have whether or not it was a live broadcast, right? And we have the time it was published. And that's the first video. That's the first object. So I know that's a lot, but what you got to remember is you don't have to memorize how that's structured, right? You just need to know how to read it. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't have to memorize how the YouTube data is structured. And I use it all the time. And I've been using it for years. And I still don't have to memorize because there's no reason to memorize it. I just know how to read it when I'm looking at it. So I just read it with you live. I just opened it up and I read it as I went along because I know how to read this because I know the language, right? So I know how to read the structure. So knowing how to read the structure lets me be able to read anything, right? I don't want you to know how to just read the one thing. I want you to learn how to read anything, and then you can go and do anything. That's the key. So with that said, that's the only reason why I brought out REPL so I can put it all out here and it'll give us some type of coloring and stuff like that, make it easier to read because you can't even read it over here because everything's like covered and you gotta move this over and all that. So I just gave us just made this. I have a little canvas to write on. That's why I said you don't need to open up REPL or anything like that. I just literally put it here just to make the point. Right. So again, this is what objects look like. So coming back over here, we're almost done for today. So if I blew anybody's mind, like I already gave you too much information, I'm almost done showing you what I want to show you. Right. So give me like 25 more minutes and then you can go take a nap or go eat something, get some sun, some breath work, whatever you like to do. But I'm almost done. I need like 30 to 45 more minutes at the most. So again, we are going into that list of data and we're taking out the title data out of the snippet. Now, when you get raw data, it doesn't have a name inside the code, right? Because basically every time I pass to a new node, it's a new program. So it's never been saved inside the program yet. So it doesn't have a name anymore. So the reason why I was able to change the name from item to video because I made the name here when I said const item, right? So that's where I made the name. It didn't have any place to get stored yet, right? So keep that in mind. But it's always called items from node to node. So what I mean by that is, you see how I had to go to items bracket 0.json.items, right? The main thing is always called items, right? And then the thing inside of it is always called JSON, right? Like that's always how you get access to the list of data for the most part. There's a little caveats to that. That's basically how you always access it. It's always called items and you got to like do stuff to get further inside. So, but you'll see that the more nodes you see, you'll start to get the pattern. But once you actually successfully access this data, then you have to like look through it and say, okay, I need to get to the thing that I want, which is items. Do y'all see this where it says items right here? This is where we want to get. We want to get to items. And then we want to take each item in items, right? Which is each one of those videos. We're going to call them video. Each one of them is going to be a video, each iteration. And we're going to go ahead and say that we want to take the snippet section and we want to get the title out of the snippet section, right? And then we're going to take that data out of the snippet section that we took out of the snippet section, and we're going to save it inside this little space in memory that we created called title. And then all we're going to do with that is put it inside the results. So that's what we're going to do there. So we're going to take each one of the titles, right, and put it inside the results. And then what we're going to do next is then we're going to return. Looks like we're returning twice, but we're not, because we have this little add-on here called map. And this is a data transformation inside of a data transformation. Maps mean you want to take data that you pulled out, and then now you want to change it. So we extracted the data, but we never changed it. So we took all the data and we put it inside results, but we never changed it. Map is when we actually change it, right? And that's where we actually want to go ahead and we want to take it and we want to just put it inside of one list. And that's what we're doing here. We flattened it into one list. Really quickly, so you know what I mean, but that's hard to describe. Copy this and put this in ChatGPT to have it explain it to you as well, especially if you don't understand my explanation, because now that's the whole code. Now, the bottom part of the code is shorter to explain. But this map part might throw you off, because this is where the data transformation happens. But I'm going to show you what it looks like before I do that. And then that will show you kind of what I mean. So first, I'm going to cut this part off. Cut it. Close it like that. And then I'm going to run it. Right? Let it execute. And this is what it looks like before I transform it. It still looks like this YouTube crap, right? Because we only took out a little piece of it. Now what I want is I want to take each one of these items, right? And then only take the title and then put only the titles into a list called title. Probably should call it the titles, but I don't want to break the other nodes, right? So I'm going to leave it without the S. And that's what I want to do there. So now when I add the data transformation piece right here, then I test the step. Now that's how I get it like this. Right? So I took it from the big list and then turned it into that smaller list. That simpler list, I should say. Right? Which just has title and a bunch of titles in a list, rather than all that stuff you saw a second. Right? So that is the goal. Wait, I see a question. I'm sorry, I came in late. Are there any links? No, there's no links. It's just a demonstration. There's no links. So what I'm doing right now for anybody that just came in, and I'm done with this node now, and now all that data I'm going to take to the next node. For that person that just said that, what I'm doing is before we actually finish making our AI automation, our first slightly advanced AI automation that we're working on, I'm showing how the individual pieces work. So the first one is our trigger node that tells the automation in N8N that says, hey, I want to start the automation at 9 a.m. every single day or whatever, right? This next one says, I'm going to talk to the YouTube API and grab a bunch of data, which for us happens to be grabbing the most recent video data from the Emergency Awesome channel, right? Then after that, then we're going to take that data from YouTube and we're going to transform that YouTube data into some more easily readable data. And the reason why we want to put it in more easily readable data is because the next thing that's going to get the data is our best friend in the whole entire world, all of our besties. We're going to then give that long list of data to our best friend, you guessed it, ChatGPT. We're going to give it to ChatGPT. That's when you're supposed to get excited. Yay, my friend ChatGPT. Yeah, give it to ChatGPT. So that ChatGPT can then take that data, right? And then make a decision about the data. So now when we get to here, we're not going to write any code. This is where our prompt engineering comes in. And most people that are in Digital Boss Code have already taken the prompting classes that are given by Steven and probably have already used ChatGPT a bunch at this point. So you know how to write prompts, right? But essentially you're going to give your agent the prompts, right? And tell it how to deal with the data. So it's going to take this data in this format, and I gave it this prompt here, right? And I'm gonna copy over the prompt. Oh, it says my message is too long. I'm gonna put it. Okay, everybody who is following along wants to grab it. Go to Digital Boss Code. Go to the community tab. I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna say system prompt from code different class on 628. It's 628, right? Yes. Oh, snap. This was my boy's birthday yesterday. Dang. I be doing that every year. I'm gonna have to tell him happy belated again. Man, I don't have no excuse. I know it's in sixth grade too. Every year, it's happy belated birthday. See, only dudes can get him everything. He ain't even really gonna care. Well, if that was one of my woman friends, I'd be in trouble for like a whole 2 weeks. They wouldn't talk to me. Like, how dare you? But in my defense, dudes don't post about their birthday, you know, on their social media a whole bunch. You gotta know, right? The woman would have made sure you know already. There would have been a message being like, I can't wait for my birthday tomorrow. Y'all know it's my birthday. You know, my birthday coming up. Y'all know what happens in 12 hours. They're gonna post a story. Count down to my birthday. Let me shut up. But I just gotta know his birthday came up. I gotta see on the calendar and be like, oh man, June 27th. So I sent him a message and be like, yo, happy belated birthday, bro. You can be like, all right, appreciate you. And that's kind of the end of it. I gotta show my boy Matthew love. I known him for 20 something years. But yeah, anyway, and he just got engaged too. So I got plenty of things to say to him. He got engaged too. Man, let me shut up. I'm going on a whole tangent. Anyway, though, I'm gonna put this prompt in here, right? And you can go to the prompt and copy the prompt from here. And I'm gonna put it under tech chat. So you can go to Digital Boss Code, go to tech chat, and you can grab it from there so you can see it, right? And I'm gonna read it from here too, so you can see the whole thing. It says, you are a smart media title extractor. The input is a JSON object with a single key title containing an array of video titles. Your task is to return only the clean name of the movie, show, or entertainment franchise each title is referencing. Words like trailer, official, season, episode, final, teaser, studios, right? Remove that. Remove numbers like episode numbers. Remove colons and semicolons, dashes. Remove clickbait phrases like everything we know, he just made, what the F happened, etc. Standalone Marvel unless attached to specific properties like Ironheart, Black Panther, etc. Like only include known or clear franchise names like Fantastic Four, Avengers, Superman, Ironheart, Black Panther, Rick and Morty, X, and input example. Take all this and do something, right? So our whole entire goal is to make sure we let ChatGPT really, really know what we want it to do, so that it's super clear that it doesn't have to guess, right? What we're trying to tell it to do, right? So I'm gonna come back over here, and we put that in the system prompt, and we tell it what it's looking for in the system prompt, which is it's looking for this, and it's gonna go through it, and it's gonna go ahead and run and generate our content, right? And I'm almost done because that part is simple. And here's just where you choose the model, because you can make your AI agent be powered by anything. I chose to make it powered by OpenAI, but I could have also made it generated, like, make it work with Claude, Gemini, or whatever the heck I wanted to use. So I'm using GPT-4o Mini, but I could have used anything else I wanted there. So I'm telling the agent, I'm the brain of it is OpenAI's GPT-4o, right? And here's where if I needed to store memory, I can give it memory, like Airtable or something like that to store memory. For those of you that have been to past lessons, we've already created Airtable accounts. That's the reason why. So if you need to store something for later, you can connect it here and store the data for later, right? But we don't need to store anything here. So I'm not going to do it. And then we can also give it additional tools if it needs to be able to, let's say, search the internet or something like that. For this, OpenAI doesn't need any additional tools, but it could have done something else. And look, exactly, now we're getting the answers, right? That's exactly what we end up getting here. And if you look at after we do that, we're going to get another code snippet. I'm not going to go through the code snippet. I'm not going to read any more code, but you can see it doesn't look that different than the code we just saw. Like I said, the code's going to look different each time. You see, we create a couple things in memory, we loop, we return some stuff. That's pretty much what we're always doing, right? And you see, we did a little bit of changing of the data, just a tad bit, so we can get it like this, because the next tool needs it like this. So that's why I skipped through that one back. We already went over code. But does everybody see how that looks not that different, right? So you can ask ChatGPT to read this code too and tell you what that's doing. But for time's sake, I'm not going to go over that. But if you look at it, you're like, oh, that looks a lot like the other code, because you're going to write code that looks not that different than this pretty much all the time when you're dealing with N8N, because pretty much all you're trying to do is be that little go-between to transform the data when you need to, right? Be that little go-between to talk to an API that's external when you need to. You may need to talk to an API to fetch like data from like the stock market every once in a while, like if you're making like a trading bot or something, right? You know what I mean? Like you may need to make something that does something crazy. Like you could even make it, talk to your bank account if you really wanted to, if you trusted enough to do that. It's really 100% possible to do. So it's something that you could do. You can make it definitely talk to, a blockchain API like Ethereum through, one of the Ethereum clients, and make it, do stuff on the blockchain, create NFTs and make trades and do all type of stuff there. So you want to make a crypto trading bot, you could use this, etc. And you're gonna need to write a little bit of custom code to tell it to reach out here and and use truffle maybe and do blah 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 and do all that stuff, right? So we just did another transformation, and this is the final step that I'm going to go over today. This is the end of this lesson. Lesson ends here. The other pieces are the pieces that's going to like get the movie details, generate the images, upload it to Cloudinary, stuff like that, which we're going to end up conquering over the next couple of weeks. And then eventually we're going to put stuff in Google Sheets, make an CSV, and email it to ourselves so it can be put inside a Metro, right? So we'll get there soon. But this last part here for today is where we're actually going to then take these all these movie names, right? And then we're going to run them, and then we're going to get the movie data that you might remember that we're getting in the second lesson when we talked about APIs, and get the movie data about each movie, right? Get the movie data for Fantastic Four, movie data for the Avengers, movie data for this, and we're getting all this movie data because now this is stuff that, since these movies are hot, that if we talk about make content around these things, people probably will care, right? And so this is now going to be our source data that we're going to use in order to then generate our content. So to run through it one more time again, right? We have a trigger node. Then we go ahead and trigger the automation that goes to that YouTuber's videos and gathers all their most recent videos. And we want to go to a YouTuber that makes relevant, content about, movies and TV shows that are happening right now, right? Then we want to extract out all the titles to their videos, and then have AI look over it and just have it take out of it all of the all of the movie titles. But in order to do that, you have to think about it and say, the movie title from this title is, it's talking about Fantastic Four, it's talking about Avengers, it's talking about Superman, right? And we have ChatGPT do that for us. After ChatGPT does that, then we're going to put it back into a more code-friendly way. We're going to put it in the way that the OMDB API wants it. So we're going to transform the data again, and then run this action node that's going to actually make an API call, right? And actually make an API call with each one of these movies to give us the data for each one of the movies, right? Data about those properties, I should say, right? Because it's going to give us information about all the Fantastic Four movies. It's going to give us information about all of the Avengers movies, give us information about all the Spider-Man movies or Black Panther movies, or information about all the Rick and Morty content, etc. Right? And then eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to take that data, and then we're going to get more advanced data, like descriptions, like how many awards it won and all that stuff like that. We'll get from this one, and then we'll generate the the images, right? And then we will upload in the Cloudinary, and then we'll generate the text content for the post. We'll save it to Google Sheets, make a CSV, and then email to ourselves every single morning with all the content we have, and then we can just upload it to Metricool every single day. And the only reason why we're doing that, because we could use something else, because Metricool is free, but it doesn't have an API, but they take CSVs. So once you make the CSV, you just go into Metricool and just click upload, and you just upload all of the content, and then it'll just post it automatically, right? And you'll get an email with the file you need to upload every single day. And if you really want to be fancy, even though Metricool doesn't have an API, you could actually make something that crawls the website and still uploads the CSV for you anyway, because it could just go to the website, open it yourself, and just do all the actions it would do, click the buttons it needs to click that you would tell it that you would already pre-tell it to click. That's another thing you could do too, with a scraper tool. When we could use something like Puppeteer, but we haven't got to that yet. So I'm gonna say for right now, we can't do it just because we don't know how to do it yet. But you don't need to do it yourself manually once you know how to use that, which is very easy. You just haven't done it, and you can tie it directly into N8N. Like N8N is going to be the brain to connect all this stuff together for you always. Okay, so I got through everything I wanted to get through today. This is going to be recorded and it's going to be shared. If you have any questions or anything like that, of course, ask me inside the school community, and I will be happy to answer them. This will be posted in about 24 to 48 hours um, inside of the school group. And our next class is not the July 4th weekend, but the week after that. And then we're going to move on to the next thing. And so you have plenty of time to review this, review all the material, and be ready to try to put these pieces together yourself. So next week, where you're going to actually like put the first part of this together. Then I'm going to describe the next part, and then we're going to try to put the next part together, and then we're going to put the whole thing together. So let me go ahead and export this. All right, share. Where is the? Be forgetting where the export tool is. Download. There we go. Like, where is it at? And I'm gonna say movie tool .json, and I'm gonna post this along with the video. Okay. So again, we're getting deeper and deeper as we keep going. So right now, this is the 5th lesson, right? 6th lesson, we'll get a little bit deeper. You get the chance to try this, but keep going from there. Let me save my changes so I don't lose them. And I can actually share. Well, actually, let me go through it and make sure. Yeah, because actually, I need to delete this part down here. It's going to throw off your tool. Actually, I'll just share it. Where's the thing? That's a screenshot. Where's the file? You know what? I'm gonna post it in DBC. It'd be easier to do it than try to put it inside the chat. So just check inside DBC for the details. And like I said, if y'all have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Let me know, and we'll continue this next week. Any last second questions before we call it a night? Okay. Well, yeah, no problem. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Cool. After we get the title from the snippet, did we put it somewhere else before putting it inside the results? Yes. Let me go to that real quick. Good question. So when you got the title from the snippet, right, we save it inside this variable right here called title. We save it right here, right? So we take it. So this is on the right side. That's where we take it from the snippet, and this is where we actually put it, and then we use it here. Oh, I'm not sure. My bad. I forgot I stopped sharing the screen. So right here on line 5, see, this is where we take it from the snippet. But if we just take it from the snippet, don't put it anywhere, it'll just disappear because we won't save it. It'll be like we just threw it out the window, right? Instead, we took it and then we put it here, right? So we saved it in a position inside of our memory called title. So that's where it was saved. And then we pushed it into the results. And then we transform the results, here with the map. Right? So that's the steps there. So that's where we actually, the intermediate step, because you're right, we have to change it first, right? And we have to hold it somewhere before we can do something with it. And that's where we did that. Exactly. It's exactly a variable. That's exactly what it is. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. Any other questions? Cool, cool. Awesome. Well, be sure to come back. You know, juice will be worth the squeeze. You know, because as we're going through it, even just the act of like just getting all the automations, and then you know, as I build stuff, you're gonna get access to it. So like the the software as a service application that we build at the end with the complete code, if you're able to follow along because you've been following along throughout all that time, you're gonna get access to that. And you can change it and do whatever. And also, if you got a little bit of money, you could always give it to a developer and say, add these couple extra things that we didn't do in class. And this is what I want you to do, but you'll know enough to not get, what's the word I'm looking for, get taken advantage of. So I know a lot of times where people will pay like $10,000 and the developer has to write 10 lines of code and they make it seem like a whole lot of extras. But because you're gonna know how it works, it's like when you go to the shop, they get your car fixed. If you know how cars work, they can't tell you something that you know should only be $20 is $400 because then it don't make sense, right? You will at minimum know how to lead a team of people and stuff like that better because people won't be able to take advantage of you telling you that something is going to take 3 weeks and it costs $8,000 because you know that, well, if you were to figure out how to get done yourself, it would take you 50 lines of code. So if you're worse than me at it, it would take you 3 weeks. I shouldn't be paying you, right? You know what I mean? So that's part of the value too, no matter how you want to use the information, right? All right. So have a good night, and I will see everybody in a couple weeks. Take care.